The city of Spartanburg, according to the last census, is majority black. This audience is not. None of the audiences at these have been. More than 90% of black voters voted for President Obama. Did they do that because he's black or because the Republican Party isn't effectively reaching out to non-white voters?
I believe the latter is the case. They really have not reached out in a very big way, and I believe that needs to change. You know, last Wednesday I was in New York speaking at Al Sharpton's National Action Network. You know, a lot of conservatives very, very critical. You can't go. You can't be anywhere near that man. He's horrible, and, you know, that's being a traitor. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, if we continue with that kind of attitude, and we're not willing to talk to each other, how do we ever make the kind of progress that needs to be made? And, you know, when Sharpton introduced me, he said, you know, Dr. Carson and I don't agree on anything. He says, I don't think we could even agree that today is Wednesday. He said, but it's worth listening to him. And, you know, the crowd was pretty skeptical. Carson, are you kidding? We hate him. He's an Uncle Tom, all this kind of stuff. And, but by the time I finished, standing ovation, I could barely get out of there. Everybody wanted a photograph and a picture because I talked about the same things I talk about everywhere. And that is, how do you empower people? How do people empower themselves? How do they turn the dollar over in their own community to create wealth and reach back and pull other people along? What happens when a woman has a baby out of wedlock? Usually her education ends. That baby is 4 times more likely to end up in poverty. I talked about reading, education, and the empowerment that that gives you. And, you know, people are willing to listen, but we have to talk to them about it. We have to talk in conservative circles about how we invest in our fellow man. You know, Muhammad Yunus won the Nobel Prize in 2006 for his micro-lending program. And think about the millions of people who were lifted out of poverty in Bangladesh and that part of the world. We also have the ability to invest in people. We need to find ways to bring people out of a state of dependency. We don't want constant dependency. We want everybody to be part of the American dream, part of the fabric that makes this into a strong country. And if we begin to emphasize that, and we begin to actually create the programs and show people a way that they can realize the American dream, believe me, they will not all stay with the Democratic Party.
In answering Gordon's question, you mentioned lifting people out of poverty by ending dependence on government and creating programs that end this cycle of dependence on government. What would those programs look like? How would we do that?
Thank you for asking that question. You know, I have an opportunity to do a lot of public speaking, and I speak at a lot of fundraisers, and many of them are for programs of the type that I was just talking about. There was one program I was very impressed with where businessmen and professional men adopted kids from the inner city. Not officially adopted them, unofficially. Brought them into their world, showed them what kinds of things were possible. Most importantly, paid for their tuition in private schools. In a city where only 40 to 50% of the kids were graduating, virtually all of those kids graduated and went on to college and began to do important things. Another group that I spoke for went out on the street and found people who were destitute, in many cases homeless, brought them into a program, put them through a 13-week course, free of charge. Bought them new clothes, taught them skills needed to hold a job, helped them to get jobs, talked to their employers, and 70% of those people were off the public dole within a year. One young lady that I talked to was homeless when they found her and a drug addict. And time when I talked to her, she was 3 months away from getting her PhD. You know, what can happen when people are willing to invest in other people? That is really what brings people out of a state of dependency. You can throw money at it until you're blue in the face. That's not going to change anything. You know, look at all the money that we spent on these social programs, you know, over the last few decades. Nothing has gotten better. Everything has gotten worse. Food stamps, 1.4% of the population in 1969. Today, over 14%, a tenfold increase. That's going in exactly the wrong direction. We have the ability to change this. If we love our fellow man, we invest in them. It is the responsibility of us, the people, and not the government.